The room fell completely silent. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. All eyes were fixed on the homeless woman sitting at the grand piano in the corner. Her weathered hands hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. The worn fabric of her coat seemed out of place against the polished black surface of the instrument. Someone in the back whispered something, but no one was listening anymore. Everyone was watching, waiting. Her fingers touched the keys. The first note rang out clear and pure, cutting through the thick tension in the air like a knife through butter. Then another note, and another. Within seconds, the melody began to unfold, each phrase more beautiful than the last. The sound filled every corner of the café, wrapping around every person there like a warm embrace. Some people's mouths hung open. Others had already begun to cry. But to understand why this moment was so powerful, why this performance would change everything, we need to go back. Back to 2 hours earlier, when a woman named Evelyn Rivers first walked through those cafe doors. Back to when no one knew her name, and certainly no one expected what was about to happen. Let me tell you how we got here. It was a Friday evening in late October, and the Riverside Cafe was packed. The place always drew a good crowd on Friday nights. Young professionals unwinding after a long week. College students cramming for exams over endless cups of coffee. Couples on dates leaning close across small tables. The warm lighting cast a golden glow over everything, and the smell of fresh brewed coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the air. Jazz played softly through the speakers, just loud enough to create ambiance without drowning out conversation. In the corner of the cafe sat a beautiful grand piano. It was the cafe's centerpiece, a gorgeous black Steinway that the owner David Morrison had inherited from his grandmother. Most nights it sat silent, a piece of elegant decoration. Occasionally David would hire a pianist for special events, but tonight it simply waited lid propped open, keys gleaming under the soft lights. At exactly 7:15, the door opened and a woman stepped inside. She was African American, probably in her early 50s, though the hard lines on her face might have aged her beyond her years. She wore a heavy winter coat that had seen better days, the fabric worn thin at the elbows and hem. Her jeans were faded and torn, not fashionably, but from genuine wear. A large canvas bag hung from her shoulder, bulging with what appeared to be all her possessions. Her graying hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and despite everything, there was something about her bearing, something in the way she held her head up that suggested dignity. Her name was Evelyn Rivers, though no one in the cafe knew that yet. Evelyn stood just inside the doorway for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the light. She scanned the room slowly, taking in the warm atmosphere, the laughing faces, the casual comfort these people enjoyed. Then her gaze landed on the piano, and something shifted in her expression. Her eyes softened. Her lips parted slightly. For just a moment, she looked like someone seeing an old friend after years apart. She moved through the cafe, slowly navigating between tables, acutely aware of the stares following her. She could hear the whispers, feel the judgment. A well-dressed woman pulled her purse closer as Evelyn passed. A man wrinkled his nose. At a corner table, a group of college students stopped their conversation to watch her, one of them already reaching for their phone. Evelyn had grown used to this. 3 years on the streets had taught her that to most people, she was invisible. Or worse, she was a problem to be avoided, a reminder of things they didn't want to think about. But tonight, she had a purpose. Tonight was different. She approached the counter where David stood wiping down the espresso machine. He was a man in his mid-40s, fit and friendly-looking, with sandy brown hair starting to gray at the temples. He looked up as Evelyn approached, and his welcoming smile faltered slightly, replaced by a polite but cautious expression. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone professional but guarded. Evelyn's voice when she spoke was softer than he expected. "Cultured. I was wondering," she said, glancing toward the piano, "if I might be able to play for a few minutes. Just one piece. It's a special day." David blinked, caught off guard by the request. The piano, He trailed off, unsure how to respond. His eyes flicked to the other customers, many of whom were now openly watching the exchange. From a nearby table, someone laughed. Not loudly, but loud enough. "This should be good," a young man muttered to his companion, not bothering to lower his voice. "I don't think that's a good idea," David said, trying to sound apologetic. "The piano, it's quite valuable, and we usually only allow—" "I'll be very careful," Evelyn interrupted gently. "I used to teach piano. I know how to handle the instrument." Another ripple of laughter from the watching crowd. A woman whispered to her friend, "Yeah, right. She probably wants to beg for money afterward." David felt the weight of all those eyes on him. He thought about his other customers, about the atmosphere he worked so hard to maintain. He thought about the piano, his grandmother's piano, and what she would think of him allowing a homeless woman to play it. But he also thought about his grandmother's kindness, her belief that music belonged to everyone. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "I'm sorry, but please." Evelyn's voice was quiet, but steady. "Just one song. Today would have been my husband's birthday. I need to play for him. Just once." There was something in her eyes, something raw and real that made David pause. Around them, he could feel the impatience of the watching crowd. Someone sighed loudly. A phone camera was definitely recording now. "Fine," David heard himself say against his better judgment. "One song. But please be careful with it." Evelyn's face transformed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." She turned toward the piano, and the cafe's background noise shifted. Conversations dropped to whispers. People were pulling out phones, anticipating either a disaster or entertainment, possibly both. As Evelyn walked toward the instrument, she could hear the murmurs following her. "Is this really happening? Someone should stop her. This is going to be a train wreck. I'm definitely recording this." Evelyn reached the piano and stood before it for a long moment, just looking. Her hand reached out, fingers trembling slightly, and touched the polished wood. The surface was cool and smooth under her fingertips. She walked slowly around the instrument, trailing her hand along its edge, and something in her chest tightened painfully. She pulled out the bench and sat down carefully, arranging herself properly, her back, straight feet positioned correctly on the floor. Muscle memory. Her hands hovered over the keys, not quite touching, and she closed her eyes. The cafe had gone quiet now, everyone watching, waiting for the spectacle to begin. But Evelyn wasn't in the cafe anymore. In her mind, she was somewhere else entirely, somewhere 20 years away. 20 years ago, Evelyn Rivers lived in a completely different world. She had a home, a real home, with a front porch and a garden she tended every spring. A 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and tree-lined streets. Inside that home was a living room with hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, family photos on the walls, and in the corner a beautiful upright piano. That piano had been the heart of their home. Evelyn had been a piano teacher, then one of the most sought-after instructors at Westwood Academy, a prestigious private school. She taught children from wealthy families, teenagers who were preparing for conservatory auditions, adults who had always dreamed of learning to play. She loved her work with a passion that never dimmed. Every student was a new opportunity to share the magic she'd discovered in music as a child. Her husband, William Rivers, was a civil engineer. He was a big man with an even bigger laugh, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking into it. He had deep brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which was often. William didn't play piano himself, couldn't read a note of music to save his life, but he loved to listen to Evelyn play. "Your music is magic, Evie," he would tell her, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. Pure magic. They had a daughter, Lily. 7 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's love of music. She was learning to play piano, though she insisted she'd never be as good as her mother. Evelyn would laugh and ruffle her daughter's hair and tell her she'd be even better, just wait and see. Every evening after dinner, the three of them would gather in the living room. Evelyn would play while William read on the couch, and Lily did her homework at the coffee table, half listening, half working, occasionally looking up to watch her mother's fingers dance across the keys. Those moments were everything. The warmth of their home, the sound of music filling the spaces between them, the certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be with these people in this life. On weekends, William would request his favorite pieces. He had simple taste in music, preferring the romantic composers, the ones who wore their hearts on their sleeves. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata was his absolute favorite. He said it sounded like what love felt like. Evelyn would play it for him, and he would close his eyes and listen, and sometimes she would see tears on his cheeks when the piece ended. Again, he would say, smiling, "Play it again." And she would. She would have played it 1,000 times if he asked. On their 12th wedding anniversary, William surprised her with a weekend trip. Just the two of them, Lily staying with her grandmother. They went to a bed and breakfast in the mountains, and on their last evening there, they found a small jazz club. The pianist there was incredible, playing with such passion that the entire room felt electrified. After the performance, William had taken Evelyn's hands in his and said, "That's what you do for me, Evie. Every single day. You make the whole world electric." She had never been happier than she was in that moment. But happiness, Evelyn would learn, is a fragile thing. It happened on a Tuesday. Evelyn would always remember that detail. Tuesday morning, sunny and warm, the kind of spring day that makes you believe everything is going to be all right. William had left for work early, kissing Evelyn goodbye, while she was still half asleep, whispering that he loved her. Those were the last words she heard him say. "Love you, Evie." She was in the middle of a lesson that afternoon when her phone rang. The student, a dedicated 14-year-old preparing for a competition, had just finished playing a difficult passage. Evelyn normally never answered her phone during lessons, but something made her look at the screen. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was professional, measured, gentle in that particular way that people use when they're about to destroy your world. "Mrs. Rivers, this is Memorial Hospital. Your husband was brought in about an hour ago. You need to come right away." The rest of that day existed in Evelyn's memory as fragments, disconnected pieces that didn't quite fit together. The drive to the hospital, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white, the fluorescent lights of the waiting room, a doctor with kind eyes explaining words that didn't make sense. Stroke. Massive. Nothing we could do. "I'm sorry." William had collapsed at work. One moment he was reviewing blueprints, laughing with a colleague. The next moment he was on the floor, his brain bleeding, his life slipping away. He was 41 years old. The funeral was a blur. So many people. So many hands touching her shoulder, voices saying they were sorry, faces that all looked the same. Lily, only 7 years old, not understanding why Daddy wasn't coming home, asking when he would wake up. Evelyn had no answers. She had nothing. After the funeral, after everyone left, after the casseroles stopped coming, and the phone calls became less frequent, Evelyn found herself alone in the house that now felt enormous and empty. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. The school gave her a leave of absence, 1 month, then 2. Then they had to hire someone else. They were very sorry, they understood, but there were students who needed teaching. The bills began to pile up. Medical bills from the hospital, from the ambulance, from the specialists who had tried to save William's life. The life insurance policy wasn't as comprehensive as they'd thought. There was a mortgage, car payments, property taxes. Everything that had seemed manageable when there were 2 incomes became impossible with one, especially when that one income had disappeared. Evelyn tried to go back to teaching. She really tried. But the first time she sat down at a piano after William's death, her hands wouldn't move. She placed her fingers on the keys, and nothing happened. It was as if the connection between her brain and her hands had been severed. She tried again, and again. Nothing. The music that had been as natural to her as breathing was suddenly gone, locked away behind a wall of grief she couldn't scale. Without teaching income, the house became impossible to maintain. 6 months after William's death, Evelyn had to make the hardest decision of her life. She called her mother, who lived 2 states away. "Can Lily stay with you?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Just for a little while, until I get back on my feet." Her mother said yes, of course. Lily cried and clung to her mother when it was time to go. "I don't want to leave you, Mama," she sobbed. "It's just for a little while," baby Evelyn promised, her heart shattering. "Mama just needs to figure some things out. I'll come get you soon. I promise." She was lying. She didn't know when she'd be able to keep that promise. A year after William's death, Evelyn lost the house. She sold what she could, including most of the furniture. The piano, her beautiful upright piano that had been the soundtrack to her happy life, was one of the last things to go. She sold it to a young couple who were just starting out, who promised to take good care of it. When they loaded it into their truck and drove away, Evelyn felt like she was watching her old life disappear around a corner, never to return. She moved into a small apartment, then a smaller one, then a room in a boarding house. Each move took her further down, deeper into a hole she couldn't climb out of. Depression wrapped around her like chains. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. She lost job after job, unable to focus, unable to care. And then 3 years ago, she lost the last room. Couldn't make rent, had nowhere else to go. Evelyn Rivers, who had once taught piano at a prestigious academy, who had raised a daughter and loved a husband and lived in a house with a garden, became homeless. The first night on the streets was the worst. Evelyn had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, so completely alone. She found a doorway of a closed shop and tried to sleep, but every sound jerked her awake. By morning, she was exhausted and terrified. She learned quickly where the shelters were, where to get a hot meal, which parts of the city were safer than others, how to become invisible to keep your head down to avoid eye contact. She learned that most people would walk right past you like you didn't exist, and in some ways that was better than the alternative. Better than the disgust, the fear, the anger. She hadn't spoken to Lily in over 2 years. The shame was too great. How could she call her daughter and tell her that her mother was living on the streets? How could she explain that she'd failed so completely? It was better, she told herself. If Lily thought she was just busy, just working on getting better, just not ready yet. Better than the truth. The streets aged you fast. Evelyn watched herself change in the reflections of store windows. New lines on her face, gray in her hair, a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She was only 52, but she looked 60. But through it all, through every cold night and hungry day, through every moment of despair and hopelessness, one thing remained constant in Evelyn's mind: music. She couldn't play it anymore, couldn't even bear to try, but she could hear it. In her head, constantly, she heard piano music. The pieces she used to play. The pieces she used to teach. The pieces William loved. Especially Moonlight Sonata. That piece played in her mind, on an endless loop, like a ghost haunting her thoughts. William's favorite. The piece that sounded like what love felt like. She would pass music stores and press her hands against the window, looking at the pianos inside. She would stand outside concert halls when she knew performances were happening, listening to the muffled strains of music that made it through the walls. She would sit in parks when street musicians played, closing her eyes and letting the sound wash over her. Music was all she had left of her old life, of William, of herself. 3 months ago, something changed. Evelyn was sitting in a library, one of the few places where homeless people could exist without being hassled, and she saw a flyer for a free concert. A pianist was performing Beethoven's complete sonatas over a series of evenings. She went to every single performance, sitting in the back row, barely breathing, letting the music fill all the empty places inside her. On the last night after the final piece ended and everyone else had left, Evelyn found herself alone in the concert hall. The piano sat on stage lid, still open, waiting. She stood up and walked down the aisle, drawn forward by something she couldn't name. She climbed the steps to the stage and stood before the instrument. Her hands reached out trembling and hovered over the keys. For the first time in 3 years, she wanted to play, needed to play. But before she could touch the keys, a security guard appeared. "Hey, you can't be up here." Evelyn fled. But something had awakened. The need to play had returned, urgent and undeniable. For weeks afterward, she thought about nothing else. Where could she play? How could she get her hands on a piano just for a few minutes? Then today, walking past the Riverside Café, she had seen the piano through the window. And she remembered what day it was. October 27th. William's birthday. He would have been 60 today. It felt like a sign. Like William himself was telling her it was time. Time to stop running from the music. Time to stop running from herself. So she had walked into that cafe, gathered every ounce of courage she had left, and asked to play. And now here she sat in front of this beautiful piano, with dozens of skeptical eyes watching her, waiting for her to fail. Evelyn's hands hovered over the keys, and the cafe held its collective breath. She could feel the weight of all those stares, hear the whispered doubts, sense the phones recording her. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. What was she doing? She hadn't played in 3 years. What if her hands had forgotten? What if she sat here and nothing came out? What if she humiliated herself in front of all these people? But then she thought of William, of his smile when he listened to her play, of his voice saying, "Your music is magic, Evie." She thought of Lily, who she hadn't spoken to in so long, of the person she used to be, the life she used to have. She thought of the music itself, which had lived in her mind through every dark moment, keeping her company, when she had nothing and no one else. And she thought, "This is for you, William. Happy birthday, my love." Evelyn's fingers touched the keys. The touch was tentative at first. Barely there, just making contact with the cool ivory. Then she pressed down gently, testing. The piano's tone was rich and clear, perfectly tuned. She played a scale. C major, simple basic, the first thing any piano student learns. Her fingers remembered. The muscle memory was still there, buried beneath 3 years of disuse, but not forgotten. Her hands knew this language. They had spoken it for decades. It was written into her very bones. Someone in the café laughed, short and sharp. A scale. That's all she's got. Evelyn didn't hear them. She was somewhere else now, sinking into a place beyond the café, beyond the judgment, beyond everything except the instrument beneath her hands and the music in her heart. She closed her eyes and thought of the piece she would play. Moonlight Sonata. First movement. Adagio sostenuto. The piece William had loved more than any other. The piece that sounded like what love felt like. She had played this piece hundreds of times in her life, at recitals, for students, for William. At his funeral, though she didn't remember playing it there, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind shattered. This piece was embedded in her soul. Evelyn took a slow, deep breath and let it out. She positioned her hands properly. Fingers curved, wrists relaxed. She heard William's voice in her mind as clearly as if he were sitting beside her. "Play for me, Evie. Let me hear the magic." And she began to play. The opening notes of Moonlight Sonata are simple. Deceptively simple. Triplets in the right hand creating a gentle rolling rhythm. A bass note in the left hand anchoring everything. It sounds almost like a lullaby, soft and hypnotic. But when Evelyn played those notes, something extraordinary happened. The tone that came from the piano was perfect. Not just technically correct, but emotionally resonant. Each note was weighted, precisely given exactly the right amount of emphasis, shaped with a musician's deep understanding of the piece. The triplets didn't just roll, they breathed. The bass notes didn't just anchor, they spoke. The teenager who had been laughing a moment ago stopped mid-laugh, his mouth falling open. The woman who had pulled her purse away earlier looked up from her phone, drawn by the sound. David behind the counter froze with a mug in his hand, his eyes widening. This wasn't what any of them had expected. The melody entered in the right hand, a simple ascending line, haunting and beautiful. Evelyn's fingers moved across the keys with absolute certainty, now all hesitation gone. 3 years without playing, but her hands knew. Her hands remembered. The music filled the café, and the atmosphere began to shift. Conversations died mid-sentence. People set down their coffee cups. Phones that had been raised to record mockery were now recording something else entirely, something none of them had anticipated. The first phrase of the piece unfolded like a flower opening to the sun. Each note led naturally to the next, creating a melodic line that seemed to float above the rolling accompaniment. The harmonic progression was simple. C-sharp minor to G-sharp, but Evelyn shaped it with such tenderness that it became something more than just chords. It became feeling, longing, memory, love. In the fourth measure, the melody reached up higher, creating a small peak of intensity before settling back down. Evelyn's right hand stretched to reach the notes, her fingers sure and steady. The dynamics were perfect, swelling slightly at the peak, and then diminishing, creating space for the triplets to breathe. A woman at a corner table felt tears prick her eyes, though she couldn't have explained why. There was something in this music that touched a place deep inside her, somewhere she hadn't even known was tender. A college student who had been about to post a mocking comment on social media found himself unable to type, his fingers frozen over his phone screen, all cynicism evaporated. The cafe owner, David, slowly lowered the mug he was holding. He had heard plenty of piano music in his life. His grandmother had played. He'd hired professional pianists for events. But this was different. This wasn't just technically proficient playing. This was a human soul pouring itself out through 88 keys. Evelyn continued playing, her eyes closed, her face peaceful. She wasn't in the cafe anymore. In her mind, she was home, in the living room with the hardwood floors and the family photos on the walls. William was on the couch, eyes closed, listening with that small smile on his face. Lily was at the coffee table, occasionally looking up from her homework to watch her mother play. The music continued to unfold, moving through its familiar progressions. C-sharp minor to F-sharp minor. The melody descended, taking on a slightly darker color, more plaintive. Evelyn's left hand played the bass notes with rock-solid timing, while her right hand shaped each phrase with the care of someone handling something precious and fragile. In the eighth measure, there's a moment, just a brief instant, where the harmony shifts in an unexpected way. It's a moment of tension, of uncertainty, before resolving back to familiar territory. Evelyn played this moment with heartbreaking vulnerability, letting the dissonance hang in the air for just a fraction longer than necessary before resolving it. Someone in the cafe gasped softly. The first section of the piece drew to a close, returning to the home key. The rolling triplets continued their gentle, inevitable pattern. The melody descended back to its starting place. And then the second section began developing the themes, further taking them to new emotional heights. Evelyn's hands moved with increasing confidence, finding strength and purpose in the music. Each phrase she played revealed layers of emotion. Grief, yes, but also love. Loss, yes, but also gratitude for what had been. Sorrow, yes, but also acceptance. The cafe had gone completely silent now. Every single person was listening. Really listening. The young professional who had been stressed about work deadlines found that stress melting away, replaced by something gentler. The couple on a date forgot about their conversation and simply sat holding hands, letting the music wash over them. And still Evelyn played on her weathered hands, drawing beauty from the instrument, proving that despite everything she had lost, despite all the years and hardship and heartbreak, she was still herself. Still a musician, still capable of creating magic. As the second section of the Moonlight Sonata unfolded, the emotional intensity in the cafe continued to build. This section of the piece moves into related keys, exploring different harmonic territories while maintaining the same gentle, hypnotic rhythm. It's here that Beethoven's genius becomes most apparent, how he can create such profound emotion with such economical means. Evelyn navigated these modulations with the skill of someone who had lived with this music for decades. Her fingers found every note with absolute precision, but more importantly, they found the feeling within every note. When the melody moved into the major key, there was a brief moment of light of hope, and Evelyn let that lightness shine through. When it returned to minor, the shadows returned, but they were shadows she embraced rather than feared. A businessman in his 50s, sitting alone at a table by the window, found himself thinking about his own life, the choices he'd made, the relationships he'd neglected, the dreams he'd abandoned for practical concerns. Something about this music played by this unlikely woman was making him question everything. Tears began to roll down his cheeks. and he didn't bother to wipe them away. Near the counter, a young woman who had been laughing at Evelyn just minutes ago felt a hot flush of shame creep up her neck. She had been so ready to judge, so certain that this homeless woman would make a fool of herself. How often did she judge people? How many times had she dismissed someone based on their appearance, never bothering to wonder about their story? The music seemed to strip away all her defenses, leaving her raw and exposed to these uncomfortable truths. David stood motionless behind the counter, and memories flooded through him. His grandmother teaching him simple melodies at the piano when he was small. Her hands so gentle and patient. The way she always said that music could heal anything if you let it. He had loved her so much, and when she died, she had left him the piano and the dream of the café. He had built this place in her honor, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten the most important part. She wouldn't have turned anyone away from the piano. Not anyone. She believed music belonged to everyone regardless of circumstance. The realization hit him hard. He had judged Evelyn the moment she walked in, had almost refused to let her play, had been more concerned about what his other customers would think than about doing what was right. Shame and regret washed over him in waves. On stage, Evelyn was completely immersed in the music now. Her body swayed slightly with the rhythm, not dramatically, but with small natural movements that came from deep engagement with the piece. Her face, while still peaceful, showed the intensity of her concentration. Every ounce of her being was focused on this moment, on these notes, on honoring William's memory with the most beautiful performance she could give. The piece moved into its development section, where the themes become more complex, more intertwined. The right hand carries the melody higher into the piano's upper register, while the left hand maintains that steady rolling accompaniment. The emotional temperature rises, becoming more urgent, more insistent. Evelyn's playing reflected this shift. Her touch became slightly firmer, the dynamics swelling to a stronger mezzo forte. The melody sang out over the accompaniment, each note clearly articulated but still connected in a legato line. Her fingers stretched to reach the wider intervals, her hand position shifting smoothly up and down the keyboard. A mother holding her sleeping toddler found herself crying silently, thinking about all the lullabies she had sung to her child. About the precious, fleeting nature of these early years. About how quickly time passes, and how important it is to cherish every moment. The music was showing her this truth, making her feel it in her bones. An elderly man near the back of the café closed his eyes and let the music transport him. He was reminded of his late wife, gone now for 5 years. She had loved classical piano music. They used to attend concerts together, sitting side by side in darkened halls, letting the music carry them away from their worries. He could almost feel her presence beside him now, her hand in his, her head leaning against his shoulder. The piece reached a particularly poignant moment, where the melody climbs to a high note and hangs there suspended before descending again. It's a moment of yearning, of reaching for something just beyond grasp. Evelyn played this moment with such raw emotion that several people in the café felt their breath catch. She was thinking of Lily in that moment. Her daughter, who would be 17 now. Almost grown. How much had Evelyn missed birthdays? School performances, first dates, graduations, all the moments she had sacrificed, believing it was better to stay away than to let her daughter see what she had become. But maybe she had been wrong. Maybe Lily would have wanted her mother regardless. Maybe love didn't require perfect circumstances. The music seemed to be telling her this, seemed to be showing her that loss and love are inseparable, that grief is just love with nowhere to go, and that the only way through pain is to acknowledge it fully, to let it be what it is without trying to escape it. As the development section concluded, the piece began its return to the home key to the familiar opening themes. But when these themes return, they're transformed by everything that's come before. They sound different now, weighted with the journey the piece has taken. The same notes, but heard with new ears. Evelyn played this return with profound understanding. The rolling triplets, so gentle at the beginning, now carried the weight of everything the piece had expressed. The melody, when it re-entered, was like an old friend returning home after a long absence, forever changed by their travels. The café was awash in emotion now. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. People who had been strangers to each other made eye contact across tables, sharing this moment of communal feeling, this recognition of shared humanity. The cynicism and judgment that had filled the room at the beginning had been completely replaced by something deeper, truer. Music, it turns out, has the power to strip away all pretense. It reveals us to ourselves and to each other. It creates a space where truth can exist without words. And in that cafe on that Friday evening, Evelyn's playing was creating exactly that kind of space. The piece moved into its final section, and Evelyn's playing took on an even greater intensity. This is the part of the Moonlight Sonata where all the emotional threads that Beethoven has been weaving come together. The melody reaches its highest points. The harmonies become richer, more complex. Everything that has been building throughout the piece comes to a head. Evelyn's hands moved across the keyboard with absolute authority now. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty. She was completely inside the music, and the music was completely inside her. Every note was a word she was speaking. Every phrase was a sentence. The entire piece was a conversation, an outpouring, a confession. Tears began to stream down her face, but she didn't stop playing. Couldn't stop. The music was pulling everything out of her, all the grief she had been carrying for 3 years, all the shame, all the regret, all the love that had nowhere to go. It was all coming out through her fingers, through the piano, through the sound that filled every corner of the cafe. The melody reached upward, climbing higher and higher, as if trying to touch something just beyond reach. Evelyn followed it, her right hand stretching to reach the highest notes, her touch remaining controlled, even as the emotion threatened to overwhelm her. The left hand maintained the rolling triplets, that steady heartbeat that had been the foundation of the entire piece, never wavering, rock solid. In the audience, people were openly weeping now. The businessman by the window had his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The young woman who had mocked Evelyn was crying into her napkin, her phone forgotten on the table. The mother holding her toddler had tears streaming down her face, dripping onto her child's hair. David had come out from behind the counter and was leaning against a table, his arms crossed over his chest, tears running freely down his face. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Everyone around him was in the same state. There was no embarrassment in this shared emotion, only recognition, only truth. The piece reached its emotional peak, the point where the melody climbs to its highest note and the harmony swells beneath it, creating a moment of almost unbearable beauty. Evelyn played this moment with everything she had. Her entire body was engaged, not dramatically or performatively, but with the natural physical engagement that comes from pouring your soul into music. In that moment, she wasn't a homeless woman being watched by a cafe full of skeptical strangers. She was a musician, an artist, a woman who had loved and lost and survived and was still here, still capable of creating beauty, still capable of touching hearts. The melody began its descent, moving back down the keyboard, the intensity gradually diminishing. But it wasn't a diminishment of emotion. If anything, the emotion deepened as the music softened. The fortissimo passion transformed into something more intimate, more personal. The big feelings became quiet feelings, no less powerful for their softness. Evelyn thought of William in these final measures. Not William dying, not William gone, but William alive. William laughing. William's arms around her. William saying, "Your music is magic, Evie, pure magic." She thought of Lily as a little girl looking up from her homework to watch her mother play her face full of love and admiration. The daughter she had failed. The daughter she had abandoned out of shame and fear. But the music was telling her something. It was telling her that it wasn't too late, that second chances were real, that she could still be the person she once was, could still be the mother Lily deserved, could still create beauty in the world despite everything that had happened. The final phrases of the piece unfolded with heartbreaking tenderness. The melody descended to its lowest point, the harmonies resolved back to the home key. The rolling triplets continued their eternal pattern, gradually growing softer, more distant, as if receding into memory. Evelyn played the last measures with infinite care, each note given its full value. Nothing rushed, nothing truncated. The piece was dying away naturally, peacefully, like a person taking their last breath, surrounded by love. The penultimate measure, 3 notes, soft as a whisper, the final measure. The C-sharp minor chord arpeggiated, spreading upward from bass to treble, the triplets continuing to the very end. Evelyn's hands lifted from the keys, slowly letting the final notes fade into silence. The last sound hung in the air, suspended, gradually diminishing, until it was gone completely. And then there was silence. Complete, absolute silence. The kind of silence that follows something profound when no one wants to be the first to break the spell. Evelyn sat at the piano, her hands still hovering over the keys, her eyes still closed, tears still streaming down her face. She was completely still. The music had taken everything from her and given it back transformed. She felt emptied out and filled up at the same time, broken and whole. The silence stretched on. 5 seconds. 10. 15. No one moved. No one breathed. The entire café was suspended in that moment between sound and silence, between the music and whatever came next. And then someone started to clap. It started with one person, the elderly man in the back who had been thinking of his late wife. His hands came together once, twice, 3 times. The sound of applause breaking the sacred silence. And then, like a dam breaking, everyone joined in. The sound erupted from every corner of the café. Thunderous applause, people rising to their feet, hands clapping together so hard it had to hurt. The noise was overwhelming, almost shocking in its intensity after the profound silence. "Bravo," someone shouted. "Bravo." Evelyn opened her eyes, startled, confused. For a moment she couldn't process what was happening. She looked around at the café full of people, all on their feet, all clapping for her, and she couldn't quite believe it was real. The businessman by the window was clapping so hard his hands were red, tears still streaming down his face. The young woman who had mocked Evelyn was on her feet, clapping and crying and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Though no one could hear her over the applause, David was making his way through the tables toward the piano, his face wet with tears, his hands coming together again and again. When he reached Evelyn, she stood up from the piano bench, uncertain, overwhelmed. "I'm sorry," David said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong about you. I was so wrong." Evelyn shook her head, unable to speak. Her throat was too tight with emotion. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard," David continued. "The most beautiful. I don't even have words. I'm so sorry I almost didn't let you play." People were crowding around now, all wanting to say something to thank her, to tell her what the music had meant to them. The businessman reached out and took her hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for that gift." The young woman pushed forward. "I'm so sorry for laughing," she said, fresh tears starting. "I was horrible." "You're amazing. That was amazing." A man who had been sitting with his wife came up. "My mother used to play that piece," he said. "She died last year. Hearing you play it, it was like she was here again." Thank you. Story after story, person after person, each one telling Evelyn what her music had meant to them, how it had touched them, changed them, reminded them of someone or something important. Evelyn stood in the middle of this crowd of strangers who felt like friends, now bound together by the shared experience of the music. She was crying freely, nodding at their words, unable to form responses, but feeling their sincerity, their genuine gratitude. A woman in her 30s approached. "I'm a music teacher," she said. "Where did you study? Who did you train with? Your playing is extraordinary. I used to teach," Evelyn managed to say. "At Westwood Academy, a long time ago." The crowd fell quiet, listening. "What happened?" someone asked gently. Evelyn took a shaky breath. "I lost my husband. And then I lost everything else. I've been on the streets for 3 years. I haven't played piano in all that time. Tonight is his birthday. I needed to play for him." The revelation sent a wave of emotion through the crowd. People's faces crumpled with empathy, with shared grief, with recognition of how close we all are to losing everything. David looked at Evelyn with something like awe. "Would you—" he started, then had to clear his throat. "Would you be willing to play here regularly? Every Friday night I'll pay you. Whatever I can afford. And you could stay in the apartment above the café. It's small, but it's empty. It's yours if you want it." Evelyn stared at him. What? "Please," David said. "People need to hear you play. I need to hear you play. This café needs you." He looked around at the gathered crowd. "We all need you," others chimed in. "I'll come every Friday if you play." "Me too. This is incredible. Please say yes." Evelyn looked around at all these faces, at the kindness and acceptance she saw there. For 3 years, she had been invisible, dismissed, avoided. And now, because of music, because of the thing she had thought was lost to her forever, she was seen again. Valued. Wanted. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll play." The applause erupted again, even louder than before. People were cheering now, hugging each other, hugging Evelyn. The atmosphere in the cafe had completely transformed. What had started as a normal Friday evening had become something extraordinary, something none of them would ever forget. David pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my contractor right now. We'll get the apartment ready. You can move in tomorrow if you want." I don't have anything," Evelyn said. "We'll figure it out," David assured her. "I have furniture in storage. We'll make it work." A woman stepped forward. "I have clothes I can donate. We're about the same size. I can bring some kitchen stuff," another person offered. "I know someone who does job placement," a man said. "I can connect you if you want to start teaching again." The offers kept coming, people wanting to help, wanting to be part of this woman's redemption story. It was as if everyone in the cafe recognized that they were witnessing something important, something rare, and they wanted to contribute to it. Evelyn was overwhelmed, tears still flowing, but now they were different tears. Not grief, not shame. Something else. Something she had forgotten the name for. Hope. The following week unfolded like a dream Evelyn kept expecting to wake up from, but never did. David was true to his word. By Saturday afternoon, the apartment above the cafe was ready. It was small, just a studio, really, but it had a bed, a table, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom with a shower. To Evelyn, who had been sleeping in shelters and doorways, it felt like a palace. True to their promises, people from the cafe brought things. Clothes still with tags on them, kitchen supplies, towels and sheets, toiletries, books. Someone even brought a small television. David stocked the kitchen with groceries. "I don't know how to thank you," Evelyn said, standing in the middle of the apartment that was now hers, surrounded by kindness. "Just keep playing," David told her. "That's all the thanks any of us need." The video of her performance had already started spreading online. Someone had recorded it and posted it with the caption, "Homeless woman plays piano in cafe." You won't believe what happens next. Normally, such a clickbait title would have been misleading, but in this case, it was absolutely accurate. No one who watched could believe what they were hearing. The video went viral. Not just locally, but nationally. Within 3 days, it had millions of views. News outlets picked it up. Homeless pianist shocks cafe with stunning performance. From the streets to standing ovation, one woman's redemption through music. Evelyn's phone, which she had managed to keep through everything, suddenly started ringing with numbers she didn't recognize. Interview requests, performance offers, people wanting her story. But the call that mattered most came on Tuesday evening. Evelyn was in her new apartment, still not quite believing it was real, when her phone rang. The number on the screen made her heart stop. It was her mother's number, which meant, "Hello," she answered, her voice trembling. "Mom." Evelyn's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the bed. "Lily." "Mom, I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. Mom, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me where you were?" The anguish in her daughter's voice cut Evelyn to the core. "I was ashamed," she whispered. "I didn't want you to see what I'd become. I don't care about that," Lily was crying now. "You're my mom. I've been so worried. I thought maybe something had happened to you. I've been so scared. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Where are you? Can I come see you? Please, Mom, I need to see you." They talked for 2 hours. Evelyn told her everything. Lily cried and raged and forgave and made plans. She would come visit that weekend. She had graduated high school, was attending community college nearby, had been desperately wanting to reconnect with her mother, but not knowing how. "I'm so proud of you," Evelyn said. "Your dad would be so proud. He'd be proud of you too, Mom," Lily said softly. "For surviving, for keeping going, for playing again." When they hung up, Evelyn sat in the quiet of her small apartment and cried. But these tears were different from all the tears she had shed over the past 3 years. These were tears of release, of gratitude, of possibility. Friday came around again, and the cafe was packed. David had advertised that Evelyn would be playing, and people came from all over the city to hear her. There were news cameras outside. The cafe was beyond capacity, people standing in the aisles, sitting on the floor, crowding around the windows to look in from outside. Evelyn walked down from her apartment and through the cafe to the piano. People applauded as she passed. She felt their warmth, their support, their genuine affection. These strangers who had become something like family in the space of a week. She sat at the piano and looked out at all those expectant faces. "Thank you all for being here," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Music saved my life. I hope it can touch your lives too." And she began to play. Not the Moonlight Sonata this time, but Chopin. Nocturne in E-flat major. Another piece about love and loss and the bittersweet beauty of memory. The music filled the café, and once again, everyone fell silent. Once again, hearts were touched. Once again, tears flowed. Evelyn played for an hour, moving from piece to piece, each one a story, each one a gift. In the weeks that followed, a rhythm established itself. Evelyn played every Friday at the café. During the week, she started teaching piano again, first just a few students, then more. The music school that had heard about her story offered her a position. She accepted. She found a therapist who specialized in trauma and grief. The healing wasn't linear. There were hard days when the memories threatened to pull her under again. But she had support now. People who cared. A purpose. Music. Lily visited every weekend. They played piano together, mother and daughter rebuilding the relationship that had been interrupted but never truly broken. Lily had questions, anger about the lost years, but also understanding. They were working through it together. Evelyn didn't become wealthy. She didn't become famous despite the viral video. The media attention faded, as it always does. But she had something more valuable than fame or fortune. She had her life back. Not the old life that was gone forever, but a new life built on the ruins of what had been lost. She had dignity again, purpose, connection, love. And she had music. 6 months after that first night at the Riverside Café, Evelyn sat at the piano on a Friday evening, preparing for her regular performance. The café was full, as always, a mix of regulars and newcomers, all drawn by the promise of something genuine in a world that often felt artificial. Before she began playing, Evelyn looked out at the gathered crowd and spoke. When I walked into this café 6 months ago, she said I had lost everything. My husband, my daughter, my home, my career, my sense of self. I had lost it all. And I thought that loss was the end of my story. I thought I would never be whole again. She paused, looking down at the piano keys. But that night when David gave me permission to play, when all of you listened, despite your doubts, something changed. Music reminded me of who I really was beneath all the loss and pain. It reminded me that the core of ourselves, the essential truth of who we are, can't be taken away by circumstances, no matter how dire. She looked up again, making eye contact with people around the room. Every person has a story. Every person you pass on the street, dismiss as invisible judge by their appearance, has a story full of love and loss and dreams and disappointments. We're all so much more than what we appear to be on the surface. David stood behind the counter, listening, his eyes moist. Some of the people in the café that first night were here again. The businessman, the young woman, the music teacher. All of them had become regulars, drawn back week after week by the reminder that Evelyn represented, the reminder of their own humanity, their own capacity for judgment and redemption. I don't know why I survived when so many others on the streets don't. Evelyn continued. I don't know why I was given this second chance, but I do know that I'm going to honor it. By playing, by teaching, by never taking for granted the gift of music and human connection. She placed her hands on the keys. Tonight I'm going to play a piece my husband loved. A piece I've played hundreds of times, but every time I play it, it means something different, because we're not the same people we were yesterday, or last week, or last year. We're constantly changing, shaped by our experiences, our losses, our moments of grace. Music is like that too. The notes are always the same, But the meaning changes based on who we are, when we play them, when we hear them. That's the magic of it. It's both permanent and constantly new. She smiled, and it was a real smile, reaching her eyes, transforming her face. Thank you for giving me the chance to share this magic with you. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for reminding me that redemption is real, that second chances exist, and that it's never too late to come home to yourself. And then she began to play. The Moonlight Sonata. Again, the piece that had started everything. But it sounded different now. The grief was still there. The memory of William woven into every note. But there was something else too. Gratitude. Hope. Peace. As the familiar melody filled the cafe, people settled into their chairs, closed their eyes, let the music wash over them. Outside, the city moved at its usual frantic pace. But inside the Riverside Cafe, time slowed down. Space opened up. Hearts opened up. Evelyn played, and in her playing was her whole story. The love, the loss, the fall, the redemption. All of it contained in the notes that Beethoven had written 2 centuries ago, notes that spoke to something timeless in the human experience. The piece unfolded in its familiar patterns, but tonight, as Evelyn played the closing measures, as the music grew softer and softer until it faded into silence, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because everything was perfect, her life was still complicated. The trauma of the streets didn't just disappear. The grief over William would never fully go away. The lost years with Lily couldn't be recovered. But despite all that, or maybe because of it, she felt complete, whole, herself. The final notes faded. Silence. And then, as always, applause. Warm, genuine, full of affection and respect. Evelyn stood and took a small bow. Lily was there in the front, visiting for the weekend, her face bright with pride and love. David was grinning behind the counter. The regulars were on their feet. This was her life now. Not the life she had planned. Not the life she had lost. But a life nonetheless. A good life. A life filled with music and meaning and second chances. And every Friday night, when Evelyn Rivers played piano at the Riverside Cafe, the room filled with more than just music. It filled with proof that second chances are real, that dignity can never truly be taken away, only temporarily forgotten, that talent and worth have nothing to do with circumstances, that every person deserves to be seen, truly seen for who they are beneath the surface, and that sometimes all it takes is one moment of courage, one person willing to take a chance, one community willing to listen with open hearts to change everything. The music, after all, was always there. In Evelyn's fingers, in her soul, waiting to be rediscovered. All she needed was a piano, a moment of bravery, and people willing to hear. She had found all 3. And in finding them, she had found herself again.